everybody, but I realized I'm in a room of jazz musicians who professionally take a perfectly good song that's written with a lovely squiggle so that they can play it, so that most people can enjoy it, and they ramble it into something that makes a normal person's ears bleed. So I'm going to go with the rambling techniques.
Yeah. Go on, Aubrey. Go on and blow, man.
Whenever something like this happens, people tell me about God's plan. Today, God's plan, Obama's plan, make about the same sense to me. Now that would be a discussion over a cigar with Will and I. We had very little in common, really. We would meet, we would talk, mostly politics, sometimes girls. The way he looked, there was nothing about Will that would make him an obvious friend of mine. So he used to come in the restaurant with his dates, and he would sit and eat and talk for hours and hours. And I would say to him the next day, "Will, what are you talking about for hours and hours? I don't think I've ever talked to anyone for that long. What are you saying?" And that day I had my shooting earplugs in my pocket, and I said, "Sometimes I wear these on dates so I don't even have to listen." And he looked at me, and we were just getting to know each other. It didn't matter how bad a person you are, which I clearly am not near the top of the ladder, but he could accept it, and he could find the good in anyone. And I think that's a very, very common theme on Facebook. He liked people who many people didn't. And I was certainly in that category. And before everyone laughs, I see a lot of other people in the same category. I asked him to help me one day put in a washer and dryer in my house. I couldn't lift one of them goes on top, so I called him. And he was on his way, and I remembered my father's here. My father's an 85-year-old Irish Catholic, red hair, pretty much hates everyone more than I do. It wasn't good. And I was waiting for Will to see how he would look, and he jumped out of his car, and he had the full flowing hair, and the tattoos, and the big wood in his ears, and I said to my father, "Go in and watch TV. Don't say anything, just go in and watch TV." So we went in and we put the washer and dryer up, and Will said, "Where's your father?" He said, "He's watching TV, don't worry about him." He's like, "I never met him, I want to say hello to him." So he went in, and I, being a good friend, went out to the truck to get the hoses to hook up the water. And I came back in, and I looked in the TV room, and they weren't there. And I said, "Oh shit." Just throwing them out the front door or something. So I go up, and I hear jingling in the kitchen, and I look in there, and my father's teaching Will how to make tea. It's like, you have to heat the pot before you put the hot water in. And Will is like, but the water's hot. It's like, "You're listening to me, young man." So they drank tea for an hour, and my father said, that's a hell of a young man right there." I said, "What about the hair and the wood and his ears?" And he said, "You know, his face is skinny, so if he didn't..." I said, "Will," I said, "you like the horse whisperer, except for assholes. You're an asshole." Will would get in my car and I'd be in a bad mood, and he would say, "You know, you have to heat the pot before you..." shortly after that, he started a house sit for me. He liked it. I'd have to leave out cigars and scotch from like some weird Santa Claus. Because if I didn't leave it out, you wouldn't touch anything. You could trust him with your life. And I would come back after being away, and he would answer the door and like this. What are you doing? He'd walk with he'd talk with a funny accent. I'm like, what? He said, I've been Aubrey Fogarty for 5 days. You can't just turn off the pump and sound. Immediately, it's going to take me a while. So, insulting was one of Will's great talents. And you couldn't insult him. One time I met this woman on a plane, and she owned a Camacho cigar company, and she gave me these 2 cigars, and she said, these are very strong, they're not even for sale. And I smoked one, and it was sickening. It almost made me sick, so I said, I got to give the other one of these to Will. So I gave it to him one night in Zanzibar, and he went up to play with his trio, and the music started to sound weird, and I looked up on the stage, and he was just leaning on the wall with his bass. He came down, and I said, well, that was the best set I've ever heard. And this instant, he's like, that might be the most enjoyable set I've ever played. He was really taught me so much. Another guy is here today, but I'm not going to point him out because we've all had our ups and downs and troubles, and Will told me once, he's like, I got 2 guys that I could call if I needed a truck and a shovel and to go out in the desert with somebody. Thank you very much for that. So, and I started to think about it. Will is the last person who would ever need a truck and a shovel. So I figured he was really saying, if you or my other friend ever need, we can go with you. And it's funny, but I think that's the type of friend he was. He would do anything. If you were his friend, there wasn't a thing he wouldn't do for you. One time his bass got stolen, and I said, we moped for weeks. I said, well, you can pay me back. Let's go buy a bass and you have it. Oh, how could we do that? I'm like, our friendship would be ruined. Like, I buy Louis Vuitton purses all the time. I won't ruin anything. But he wouldn't do it. And I looked for that damn bass on Facebook and on Craigslist, and I looked for it for over a year. I wanted to find it and put it in a truck with the person who sold it to me and call him and say, all right. I got the bass and went to the desert. Because I know by the time he got in the desert, he would be starting a small band with this guy. He would explain to me why the guy needed the bass so much that it's okay to do that. Will was, all I can describe it is, he was more evolved than most people. We would argue about the politics, and I was in a place when I met him where the big things in life, the making money, the business, the politics, the family crises, those big things were ruining the little things that life's enjoyment comes from. So first thing he told me was, he didn't tell me, he never tried to teach anyone anything, you just learned from watching him. But as soon as our political discussions would get heated, he would say, this might be the best cigar I've ever had. And then everything would go away, and I'd be like, you're right, it might be. It wasn't any better than the stinky cigar that was before, but the fact that you were enjoying it right there with him at that time made it the best one. But after 15 years, I took it another step. The big things that I thought were ruining the little things are actually the little things. The big things are the little moments that we get to enjoy with each other. So, I don't know what to tell you. I see that guy, the most interesting guy in the world, commercials. And I'm thinking, listen, I know a guy who has a master's in music, long hair, wood things in his ears, and tattoos. He can knit. He's a jazz player, but he will speak to a singer. So that way other people will listen to the music also. Which is really something you guys should try. He's a vegetarian sometimes, but he likes steak more than anyone else. Every steak we ever had, this is the best steak. So if he was your friend or your son or your boyfriend or your brother or a band member, all I'm telling you is when you're trying to replace them, don't measure people against well, because you'll come up short.
Aww.